can't speak for what exactly the triggers were with Mr. Rentis, but he's not the only one. There's a number of them. And when we talk about the value of our police, and we talk about that thin blue line, there's something that's always stuck with me as far as that illustrates the value of our police and how important they are and how we cannot tolerate acts like this. And it's this simple thought. Imagine for a day that we just say in our community, in our state, in our country, the police aren't going to show up tomorrow. No police. There will be no police tomorrow. Imagine what happens in your community. Imagine what your thoughts are. Imagine what you're going to do. Are you going to go to work? Are you going to take your kids to school? Are you going to go vacation? Or are you going to be thinking about nothing, but somebody's going to come to try to take everything that I have away, whether I have a castle, whether I have an efficiency apartment, or they're going to harm somebody in my family. So think that farther. let's say we don't have, not one day, the police aren't going to show up for work for a week, anywhere in the country, or for a month. What happens to our country? What does our country look like 31 days after that? You all know where it would take us and what would happen. Those are the individuals that are standing between us and chaos, and those are the individuals whose lives were at risk last night, who responded last night, and that's why we have all these serious charges. And everybody needs to be outraged at what's going on in our country and how we are being torn apart, and how rhetoric and discussions like this about the police and anti-police are making them nothing but targets when we deserve their praise. Now, I have nothing to say about the individual police officers who commit crimes, and they should be held fully accountable. There's nobody that's more offended by police officers who commit crimes in the line of duty than the other police officers and people in law enforcement in the line of duty, because it makes them look bad. It makes them horrific, and those people need to be held accountable. So none of my remarks condone any of those wrongdoers. But that does not allow us a nation, and we will split as a nation at the seams if the entire police department, and we have a country where people can just apparently just pick up sniper rifles and just start shooting at police because they're angry at them. Not because of any personal encounter with them, but because they don't like them. We need to do better as a country. We control the messages that are coming out there. The rhetoric must be toned down, and we need to really look hard at our system of justice as well, because our justice system has to be fair. There cannot be one set of standards for a certain person and another for another. They have to be the same. Equal justice has to be equal justice. They cannot just be words. And along those same lines, there have to be real consequences to actions. The more serious actions require more serious consequences. And over the past few years, there's no doubt in my mind, I've seen a shift away from, in Pennsylvania and perhaps in the country, away from having real consequences for a lot of our crimes. And there's always a give and take, and the pendulum goes one way. Sometimes it's too far towards punishment, sometimes it's the other way, and we've definitely gone back the other way. Having said that, I want to emphasize something. There is no way we're going to arrest our way out of a crime problem. The solution is prevention, education, and treatment. Absolutely, that's the preferred solution. But enforcement has to be a part of it. And the police officers have to be able to do their jobs. And we as prosecutors, when we catch, have to be able to convict the right people. And there have to be real consequences. And everything in all those arenas are being chipped away. Police officers are already asked to do too much, and they're always asked to do more. And they have almost impossible restrictions upon them to do their duty. We see it, the death penalty. We have a death penalty in Pennsylvania, but we don't have a death penalty in Pennsylvania. It's in name only. We don't really have a death penalty. We used to have a 10-year mandatory up until last year for people that raped a child. There's no mandatory sentence for somebody that rapes a child in Pennsylvania anymore. There's none. Child rapists get about half the sentence of what they used to do because our courts are saying that's what it is. Our judges are pretty good. Lancaster County Judge, I think we're more fortunate than many other counties in Pennsylvania. Drug dealers, too often I hear, instead of being saying they're killing people, when they are killing people, what they're talking about is, well, they're struggling with a habit. They're killing people. That doesn't mean I'm not sympathetic to somebody that's struggling with addiction, but there needs to be consequences for selling heroin and having people overdose on that. In the juvenile arena, what I've seen in our justice system is we're going the wrong way. The teenager of 2016 is far more sophisticated and thus far more culpable than a teenager of 1976, and yet the penalties and the consequences in juvenile court, and again, juvenile court's about rehabilitation, and I'm for that, but the consequences of it are far less severe. And in this case, Mr. Rentis had, is my understanding, and I'll try to confirm this, but my understanding had failed to appear the last 6 times that he was required to appear for a juvenile court review, and there was no warrant, no detainer for him. And again, I'll confirm that. But the system and the pendulum is swinging back too far, and we are sending, it goes back to the messages we see from our leaders, the message we're sending from our own very system, that there have to be consequences for failing to appear. There have to be consequences for the crimes that you commit, consequences that get through to the person. You're not going to get rehabilitation from somebody if they think they can just get away from things. Get away with things. There need to be consequences. And again, I'm not suggesting that everyone needs to be put in jail and that's a solution. It isn't the solution, but sometimes they have to be. And clearly, what we're seeing now is a breakdown in a situation where we've got people emboldened enough that there will be no consequences to shooting at police officers and killing police officers. And you know, I could go on longer and longer, but we do need to focus about respect. And what I see is a lack of respect throughout our entire country for each other, people for themselves, criminals who have no sense that when they that they are part of a community, and when they commit a crime against that community, that they are committing a crime against themselves. Respect when you can have disagreements with people and politicians, which doesn't mean the other person is an idiot or a liar or the enemy. In the time that I've been in the DA's office, what I've seen, and I'm overgeneralizing, is for juveniles, when they used to come into court 25 years ago, they had more to fear from their families than they did from the judge. And now, more likely than not, what you're going to see is a situation where people are standing up for them and making excuses for them. And again, I'm overgeneralizing, but things are breaking down and things are extremely serious, and nothing's going to bring it home more than what we had last night and what we're facing going forward. And people, you know, I don't have all the answers to this stuff. I'm just saying what I've seen over the last 25 years. I think I have a responsibility to do what I can to point out where we need to improve as a community, as a justice system, and as a country. As I said, again, we're certainly not going to wrest our way out of it, but we need to do better. We need to do better in all aspects of life, in our culture, in our political, and in our media, who have helped fan the flames of some of this by putting out partial aspects of things and knowing full well how some people are going to be received and how it's going to be received. When you have role models, those role models need to step up and instill the values that this country had at one point in time, and many of us still do, because lives are at risk, and we were just so extremely fortunate, and thank God that we had no loss of life last night. We'll certainly pledge to do all we can to make sure that the sword of justice descends upon these two individuals swiftly, fairly, and severely. And police officers absolutely have to know that when they are attacked, we are all attacked. And we need to come together to make sure that in cases like this, that justice is done. I want to thank, again, emphasize all the police who responded, the chief, who did just a tremendous job, Officer Brent Smith, who did that, Chief County Detective Kent Schweitzer, who was here all day yesterday working on this, and Assistant District Attorney Travis Anderson, who was helping the Columbus Police Department all day. I'll just conclude by saying, I'll emphasize again, these individuals are presumed innocent, and call upon family members and friends of individuals to come forward and to help us. There were signals in cases like this and others of anti-police rhetoric that something could happen, and people need to intervene and step up, because nobody wins by letting it get to this point. And it could be much worse, but this is obviously as bad as it is, and so many people are going to suffer for so long because of it, including our community. So with that, I'll open it up for questions.
I know you said the facts were fluid and it was unclear if they were initially shooting towards someone else. With the investigation that you guys have done so far, is there, were they trying to draw police officers as targets, or what's kind of the...
Yeah, it's an excellent question, certainly something that we've considered. I'm not sure we're ever going to know that. At this point, I can't give you a definite answer. It's certainly a distinct possibility that the initial shots were to draw police officers. Because after that, the focus clearly, from what we can tell, was just to kill police officers. We have no indication whatsoever that he was shooting at anybody else or had a vendetta against anybody but police officers. So I can't answer that. It's an excellent question.
Sure.
You mentioned his failure to appear. Is there a criminal past or a legal past for the suspects here?
Mr. Nace, I don't know about. Mr. Rentis has failed to appear for, as I understand it, and I have to confirm this. I probably won't be able to do that till Monday for you for sure, but they failed to appear multiple times for juvenile court disposition review. They have 6-month reviews, and my understanding, he had failed to appear. That's what our records show, our internal records. I have to confirm it with the court records, so that's preliminary. I mean, when we have that many, I'm pretty comfortable saying it's probably accurate that he had failed to appear.
Your belief is that all the shots were fired by one weapon?
At this point, that's the indications that we have. There was a box for another firearm. I don't believe we recovered any other firearm from the residence, so it would seem to be a one rifle.
Okay. Was the box also for a rifle or for a handgun?
Or it was, I think it was a handgun, right?
Okay.
Well, Rentis and Nace, are they, I think you made one reference at one point to one of them mentioning that they were cousins. Are they actual cousins, or do you guys have any idea?
They were relatives. Yeah, sounds like it. Yeah. And just so you know, that we talk about the shots were going the most across the cemetery behind 103 towards the police officers. And that would be, the distance would be what I would presume why some officers are alive today. Because it's dark and you're firing across the cemetery.
And police officers were returning fire?
No, I'm unaware of the police officer returning any fire. They never were able, until the end, to really have a fix on the position of the shooter. And again, we're not even sure that the shooter was in one place the entire time. It's possible that he was in the cemetery, and for some of it, again, we're working on that.
Any thought on how they obtained these weapons? Were they legally purchased?
Yeah, the weapon, as I understand it, was his aunt's weapon, legally purchased and possessed.
But he did not have a license to operate that weapon?
No.
You said the 117. Is he enrolled in Columbia School District?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Okay.
Anything else?
Do you know what kind of penalties they could be facing for the charges that are filed?
I didn't add up the maximum penalty. I could say it easily could amount to life imprisonment. You're talking about multiple felonies of the first degree. Some carry a maximum of 10 to 20. Some carry a maximum shooting at a police officer. Each one carries a maximum 20 to 40. So there would probably be in the triple digits a maximum exposure for both these individuals. And again, at this point in time, all indications are that Mr. Rentis was the shooter. I'm not absolving Mr. Nace, but there obviously is a distinction in culpability.
Do you have any idea how many, I just heard conflicting things from neighbors, how many officers total responded?
Maybe the chief would know that better than myself.
I don't think exact
Okay.
a large number.
Yes.
There was discussion about a possible third suspect. Do you have any belief that there's another person involved in this?
No indication at this point in time that there's anybody else involved. The accounts from both of them are pretty consistent, that he was shooting and Nace giving him the ammunition. That's the physical evidence. That's who we caught in the house. Obviously it's possible, but I haven't heard anything about a third person.
Any connection here with this, with the shooting in the city the night before? Any way to link those?
I haven't answered that question. I'm limited in the factual comments that I can give you to what we put in the affidavit. We did not put anything with that respect in the affidavit, so I have to, at this point, decline to answer. There will be more answers with respect to that particular question, Tom, as we go forward. Yes.
What do you think the responsibility of the media is to the community and to the police force in this case?
Well, in this particular case, I mean, I think you're doing what you do, and I think that it's to cover the facts and cover the truthful facts. My comments with the media you know, for the most part, more with the national media and some of the shows that you see and the way things are portrayed rather than the local media. I find the local media is pretty responsible as far as getting to the truth and the covering it. I think you have a responsibility. I mean, I would ask that we do more and you join with the community leaders like Mayor Lutz over here and police officers and pastors and religious organizations in getting out the message that this is not the way to go for our society and helping us. You know, again, I'm not a politician, I'm a prosecutor. I don't have the answers, but we need to come together, and we need to come together in a way that's not going to result in me having press conferences like this and officers getting shot at. It shouldn't take this, but we need big changes, and hey, I'm open to suggestions, anything we can do, because, you know, my role is to I look at it as to provide and to protect the community and the citizens of Lancaster County. And if anybody had any suggestions to do that, let me know. I think the media, my experience with the local media and you guys has been overwhelmingly positive as far as investment in the community that you live in and wanting to turn it around. I'd like to see changes more in the national media and some of the shows, the commentators that we see, they cavalierly talk about things and the way things are covered. I mean, it's you can cover a shooting, you can cover so many of the crimes that I've been involved in helping to investigate. If you only give, we'll say there's 10 facts, and you only give 3 facts, you're going to come to one conclusion, as opposed to if you give all 10. Sometimes if you give 3, it's going to be the same. Sometimes if you give 3, it's going to come out completely different. And I think that's the responsibility. And what I've seen too often is political leaders who rush to judgment, who want to inject themselves into things that have not yet unfolded. And that's why we have a justice system. It needs to play out in the justice system. You know, we saw what happened down there in Baltimore. You know, I think the charges were filed almost immediately. There were inflammatory comments, and you know, instead of taking your time and looking at it. And that's why I emphasized, I think 3 times I said these guys are presumed innocent. You know, my responsibility is not just to make sure people are convicted, it's to make sure that innocent people are not convicted. I have a responsibility I'm not the public defender, I am the public defender. Their rights are important. We cannot convict people in violation of their rights, and nobody wants to make sure that if we're putting somebody in jail for 50 years or 100 years or 25 years or one day, we want to make sure that we're right. And we're the first screen of that, so that's our responsibility. And I think it would help if more people in the media understood that and that don't help people, help the country not make rushes to judgment in certain things, including in this case. You know, we have a lot of overwhelming facts, but these guys are presumed innocent, and they will remain so until they're convicted.
One of the things I wanted to clear up was, I know the indication was Rennis was the shooter and he was handing the spent shells to Nace, and it referenced that there might have been 5 that were recovered in the house.
That's a ballpark for me.
Okay.
I don't have the results yet from the search. We got a search warrant last night. I don't have the results yet. It sounded like there were multiple casings in Nace's pocket, and there were multiple casings on the floor that would have been observed. I'm ballparking 5 to 10. That's not an exact quote. I mean,
okay.
That's consistent, 8, 15, somewhere around there. Multiple shots that the police officers hear. We're trying, again, that's why we're trying to sort of piece that together, because each person hears a different thing. No one person has an overall godlike viewpoint on everything. They just see what they see, and we know the officers, the ones that they said that, yeah, we felt we definitely were being shot at, and we'll